podcast on PowerTalk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeart Radio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
You're listening to The Jan Price Show, and today my guests are Tony Dean Smith and Ryan Smith, and we're going to be talking about their brand new movie, Volition. Welcome to the show, Tony and Ryan.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
great to have you on here. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Volition is a really interesting movie. I have to say, very interesting in the way that it was done. So our listeners know what we're talking about. Ryan, since you wrote the script, well, both of you did, Tony and Ryan both wrote the script. Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what this movie is about?
Yeah, sure. Tony and I wrote the script together. Actually, it was based on a concept that Tony came to me with that he'd already started writing. But just to give you a quick glimpse into it, it's a sci-fi thriller, kind of in that cerebral, grounded zone. And it's about a guy named James Odin who has grown up with this clairvoyant ability. And so he can see snippets of his future, but it's not like a superhero gift or anything like that. It's actually an affliction, because his whole, for most of his life, everything that he sees always comes true. So he started living this life of apathy, and it's almost become like a mental disorder for him. And so, in fact, what happened with him when he was a young child, he had this terrible nightmare of his mother in a horrific car accident. And, he didn't know what it was. He thought it was just a dream, and no one really, took him too seriously as he talked about it. But, 2 months later, his mom actually, dies in this car accident in the same horrific way. And so he suddenly realized that he has these snippets of his future and everything comes true. And after that tragic moment, it cements in him this kind of apathetic, trapped sense of life where he doesn't know how to break through from the tragic future he sees. And so our story actually picks up years later, after he's grown up, sort of a product of the failed foster care system. And he's starting to use his ability to ends that are not really the most moral. He's using it for cheap tricks, and he's working in the crime world because that's sort of where he's found his home. And I'll let Tony just take it away from there in terms of where our story actually starts.
Yeah, sure. So again, we've set up that everything that James sees always comes true. And it's not like he's a psychic where he can see everybody's worldview. He can only see what's ahead of him. But again, it's fragmented. It's in snippets and pieces that are out of order. So that's his world. And our story starts where, for the first time ever, he meets a woman and he actually sees something like of their future together. And it's enticing and exciting, but he's never fallen in love before because he can always see how it doesn't work out. Wounded from the loss of his mother, so love is a touchy subject for him, and he doesn't want to go to those vulnerable zones. So he's presented with that for the first time, but at the same time, he says yes to essentially a diamond kind of heist that he knows morally he should not, because he's trying to get out of this and be a better person. But he says yes because he's desperate, and sure enough, sets in motion a series of visions that he has, because he sees the diamond deal going well, but another piece is introduced where he sees a fragment of a gun firing and a bullet, sort of shooting through the air, and he sees his own murder. And so we are basically, we follow James as he goes on the run with Angela, the woman he meets, trying to avoid the fate that he knows 100% will come true. And so the film is really about fate and free will and the choices that we have sort of when facing insurmountable odds. And, do we have the strength and the courage to push through those seemingly concrete walls in our lives? And for James, it's literally his death. Can he avoid that? And so that's the puzzle that we get to follow and solve through the film.
Well, very, very interesting way of the layers that you have there in this movie and the way that you have put it together, because it's, it starts out, you think it's going to be one thing and then it's not that, so it doesn't really fit into any real particular genre. I mean, you said this is a time-bending sci-fi thriller, a little different than usual things that we see. So where did the idea come from? I mean, was it something, you both wrote it together. So where did the germination of this script come about? Was there something that triggered it?
Yeah. This is Tony again speaking. You know, the joke is, and I laugh about it, but they say write what you know, of course, as writers. And so I was actually, as a teenager, always late. Like, I was tardy to everything. And so by the time I got to film school, which is where I always wanted to be, you know, I was a different person. And I wrote a short film about a scientist who develops a drug that allows him to be early all the time, because that's sort of what I needed in my life, to be early. But what the short film explored was that he wasn't like physically early, but he was like perceptually early. So what he was having these same things that our protagonist has, these little snippets of a future, but he was trapped by it. And anyway, it was a short film. It didn't have any of the characters that Volition has, or the themes that Ryan and I, you know, started to dance around with, or the structure. It was a completely different short film. So I couldn't crack it. It felt very surface to me on a level. And so I put it away and I worked on some other content for a while. And then actually a couple of years later, I was feeling a bit stuck in my film career. I had made some things, but I couldn't get really what I wanted to get off the ground. And it was that moment that I realized that actually my perception of my future was actually causing a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was literally kind of giving into my own apathy about my fears. And I just realized that, wow, that's the missing character piece to that old story I wrote. And so I got pretty excited about it, and I told Ryan about it, and he got excited about it. And then I went off and I wrote a very quick draft just so I could kind of get everything down on paper. And from then on, Ryan and I basically just took it over. And he had always been pitching me, as he had heard the idea, he had always been pitching me on a way to turn use clairvoyance almost against itself, and by using the structure to turn on in itself in a way. And it's complex unless you've seen the film. But that's when Ryan came on board, basically, and we started to go gray and lose our hair, and we're still recovering from the writing process.
What was going to be my next question? Ryan, what was it like writing this with your brother?
I mean,
have you written other things together?
Yeah, I mean, Tony and I have collaborated like from a very young age, you know, as kids, making little short films and stuff. But then also as we got older, you know, we both just really took a shine to the world of, really started in theater and performance, and then eventually morphed into writing and filmmaking. But, you know, as adults, we've collaborated on a number of scripts. And this is our first sort of real feature getting out there. But we've also both carved out our own independent kind of careers in the film and TV industry. So it's been interesting to, you know, both build skills in different areas and then come together now as fully formed, you know, creators, and really challenge each other and push each other. And as brothers, you can imagine that is unique and challenging. But for us, it's actually always been really positive. We just have a way of, we respect each other's voice, and, you know, we always want to hear what the other person is thinking, because there's always something, you know, there's generally something really strong. And sometimes it takes a while for us to click on to one another's ideas. But as soon as we do, we're able to push it forward to that next level. And with Volition, you know, when people see the film, it really is a puzzle. It's one of those mind-bending, twisty stories. And so when Tony and I started collaborating on it, we really, the gray hairs are real, because we started having to create these mind maps on our walls, and, you know, visually drawing out like how does this story take shape, because it's not a linear story in the way that most films are. And so,
right.
Well-earned creases on our face.
Yes. So how do you two, for you working together and writing, who does what? Does somebody, are you both writing the dialogue? Are you, how do you split up the writing responsibilities?
I'll jump in here, Ryan. You can follow up here. But I mean, basically, we start off with sitting in a room together for as long as it takes to break the story. So that's where we, create an outline or a beat sheet that is the fully fleshed story. It doesn't have dialogue, but it has all the plot points. And then what we do is, it's pretty unique, but we basically split the outline right down the middle. And then we arbitrarily will just say, okay, Ryan, you go off and write the first half. I'll go off and write the second half. And on different scripts, we've taken turns writing first and second halves. But then basically we go off and we write our halves based upon our outlines. And the incredible part of, I think, this process is that, there's the person who outlined the script is seeing it from this bird's eye view. But once you're into the characters and writing from a character standpoint, very often small little changes happen because the characters, hopefully, if you've built them correctly and their environment and the themes, they actually start to come alive. And so often Ryan and I will find that we've deviated a little bit from the original outline, but we still manage to sort of swim to those major plot turns. And then once we have finished our halves, we actually swap. He'll read my half, I'll read his half. And we don't give each other notes as far as now you go off and, tweak what you did. We actually rewrite each other's halves. And I think because we both have a theater background, an acting background, we love, people and we're people watchers. We have similar writing voices as far as character. So the blend it's really fun to us. And we love the Beatles, and we always joke that sometimes we'll take turns being the John and Paul, the salty and the sweet. So that's how we do it. Yeah.
Wow. Anything to add, Ryan?
No, I just thought it sounds like a crazy method, but it really works for us because, by the time you pass the script back and forth, dozens of times, it becomes this very cohesive piece where we've ironed out all the rough spots, and it's had two brains on one story. And that, for this film in particular, it really helps to have the two of us attacking it from all sides.
I think as well, right? Something that we've stumbled upon is that it's different when we're writing something a little bit lighter or more comedic, where we could actually sit in the room together and hammer out dialogue, the banter back and forth. But when we write these emotional scenes, it's difficult to essentially be sitting on each other's laps, crying together. And we'll do that anyways, brothers. But it's sometimes easier for us to just go into our own little worlds and come back. That's the process.
Great process. I always love hearing about people's processes. So I think it's always fascinating to see how people work. So how did it come that you became the director, Tony, rather than Ryan?
Probably because I was born first and I was the older, bossier brother. And I
was going to ask you how many years between the two of you?
Well, Ryan likes to say 5. I like to say 4.5.
I see. Okay.
So, keep a little closer to really where I am. But no, as a kid, I loved movies, and as siblings, we just made so many short films together. And so I was just, as the older brother, took a liking to technology and cameras for various reasons. And Ryan and I just collaborated, whether it was him acting or him writing something with me. And Ryan is a great director in his own right, and we're so excited to actually be working on our next project together as co-directors. So I think for this film in particular, we kind of had to divide and conquer a little bit because it was so challenging. And and also I think for me, I was trying to get the film off the ground a little bit earlier too. And I was always just attached as the director from an early age, I suppose.
I think it is also just sort of the natural way that we just developed, Tony's been pursuing the directing path a lot more than I have, and I've really been focused on the writing path. But Tony's been sort of writing, directing. And so, but for the future, we do plan to collaborate on the directing side as well. So, for Volition, like what Tony's saying in terms of, we have to divide and conquer, it's definitely an independent film, and we have to put on our producing hat to really pull us off. And so I took on the majority of the producing role and tried to shield Tony so that he could, really tackle the directing.
That's a great working relationship. That's wonderful. I was going to ask you what your next project is, and since you've just sort of alluded to it, what is your next project? What are you working on?
Well,
are you at liberty to talk about it or not?
Yeah, there's a couple, but Tom, why don't you go and talk about
Sure. I'll mention the one, and you can mention we have a few, but what's so fun about the two of us is that, again, having a partnership, we're both just fans of movies, so it's fun to pitch Ryan something and have Ryan pitch something to me. So something that we're very excited about, again, a number of projects, but our grandfather was actually a magician, as was our father. So we grew up, again, in this very sort of creative smoke and mirrors household. And towards the end of my grandfather's life, he actually suffered from dementia. And he struggled with what reality was and what it wasn't. And so we've developed a story around that, sort of around a bit of psychosis and illusion and how the blend of those two worlds can happen. And ultimately, it's a story of hope and redemption and of healing through, the story of what that grandfather goes through. So related to Volition, because it's all dealing with sort of cerebral aspects. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's an offshoot, but it's also something that's very personal to us because we lived it with our grandfather. Yeah.
Right. It sounds like a lovely story, something very interesting to look forward to seeing. When it came to the casting of this film, because that's always, such obviously there's many aspects to a film that are very important, but if you don't have good actors and actresses, you can have a great script, but if you don't have the actor or actresses, as I said, you really don't have a movie. So tell me about the casting and of the lead character. And right now I'm drawing a blank on his name. So forgive me.
Sure. Adrian Glenn McMorran. Yeah. Do you want to take this ride? Do you want to?
Sure. I mean, so, Adrian is actually a lifelong friend of both Tony and I. We all went to high school together, and we were all very involved in the theater department there. And we've also just always known him to be just this really authentic talent. He's a musician as well. And if anyone goes and checks out his music, Adrian Glenn McMorran, you'll see that he's just a true artist. He feels deeply, and he's wounded in the ways that we all get wounded through life. And he brings that to his performance. And so, Tony had actually collaborated with Adrian on Tony's very first sort of pre-film school feature that he shot very, very cheaply. And so that collaboration was already in place. And there's also a music video that Tony shot for Adrian called 7 or 8 Days, which is out there. And if you look at that music video of 7 or 8 Days, the character played by Adrian in that video is so reminiscent of James in our film. And so he was just a very natural fit. We're so glad that it worked out with him because, when people see the film, he just sweats and bleeds and, lives on that screen. And, very proud to have him there.
Yes, he does. He's very, very good in this role. Very good. He looked familiar to me too. So I'm wondering if I'd seen him in something else, but he's very, very good. As well as the other cast members. You have an interesting cast there. Tony, what was it like? Because you have these scenes where he's having, where he has these visions. Tell me about the filming of those. How did you go about doing that? Because they're very interesting in the way that you did them. So tell us a bit about that process.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. When trying to, physically show on screen how clairvoyance works, we started to become aware of, first of all, maybe it's not just visual, maybe it's audio too, so we started to bring in this really, really complex and intricate sound design into what James hears and these little tells that you can feel the clairvoyance moment coming. It's almost like this low tone that he feels in his head. And then the actual visual of it, we basically wanted to show what the mind's eye might see. And Ryan and I had many conversations about the rules of what James sees. And so we knew first and foremost, he only sees what's in front of him and his trajectory. But we also discussed the idea of, and we saw it written in a number of sort of publications that we were reading, the idea of sort of an out-of-body-esque experience when you face trauma, that sometimes in a car accident, you can it almost feels like time slows down and you see it from like a holographic perspective in a way. Mm-hmm. So we thought about that. Could we not just show what James literally sees through his eyes, but is there something that relates to the layers of the film, actually, that we could show, the little pieces of the vision in different ways? So, we went through so many iterations of it, in truth, in the edits. And I hope we landed on something that is, I think, organic. We didn't want it to feel, sci-fi. We wanted it to feel like this wounded character and his psychology, and that the science fiction was almost just like a character trait. So that was sort of how we went about designing these divisions.
Very
fascinating. If that answers your question.
No. Yes, you did. Yes. Yeah. Very interesting in the way that you did that. Where did you film this movie, Tony?
We filmed it. Go for it, Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're based out of Vancouver, and we're born in South Africa, but currently based in Vancouver, which we've been living here for a while. And so we shot it all in Vancouver, and that was amazing for us because we are, working members of the Vancouver film industry. So we just have a lot of great relationships here, and it was incredible to have the support from, even from the cast level of, people like Alex Ponovic, who, some people may know out there from, he's in Snowpiercer and Van Helsing, and those sorts of performers and crew members read the script and were excited about something that was original in Vancouver, because in Vancouver we do a lot of service work that's based out of LA, and here was a film that was really just homegrown. And so we have the support of this amazing community up here.
How lovely. That's lovely. What was the most difficult or challenging thing about making this movie, Tony?
I think I'm still going through it, but it's been such an incredible, if you've seen the film, it feels like, James goes on this sort of the Sisyphus journey of him climbing up this hill, pushing this rock up, and he has to go all the way to the bottom and do it again. So I think just the script, first of all, was incredibly difficult, and we wanted to make sure that was really an enjoyable read. So, we slaved over that for a long time, probably too long, and then I guess the opposite end of the script, I think the edit was really difficult. I think what I'm saying here is everything was difficult, because even our shoot itself, we had 18 days, and we knew that our 112-page script was not actually 112 pages because of the layering of some of those scenes. And so we probably needed double the schedule. And I think the shoot was probably, the most concentrated, difficult period of time, because you are literally laying train tracks like a meter or a foot before the train actually arrives, on the track. And we just had to keep motoring. And it's really a testament to everybody that we survived and thrived with these 12 to 17-hour days. And, we hired people based on their essence and like who they were and the joy they would bring to the project, because we knew it would be difficult. And so there was nothing but smiles actually on our very, very challenging shoot, which was actually the most rewarding thing I can say about everything in some ways.
Well, that's wonderful. That's great to have a great crew that you're all enjoying each other when you're filming, because that's so important, because it's like a family when you're all working together so closely. Ryan, where can people see this movie? What were the plans before the pandemic hit initially for the film?
Yeah, it's such a interesting time we're going through right now. And so, we did, Giant Pictures is releasing the film. And there was a plan for limited theatrical. We're going up against Tom Hanks' film this Friday. So we jokingly say, save us from Tom Hanks, because he's like the nicest guy in the world that we don't want to battle, but we're battling with.
Yes.
But so we did have a limited theatrical all planned, but we at the last minute have decided not to do that because it's not safe. And so right now it's available for pre-order on Apple TV right now, and then starting Friday it'll be available pretty much on every digital platform out there. So Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Xbox, Google Play, Microsoft, really everywhere. So just search for Volition and you should be able to find it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for being on the show, and I wish you much success with your film Volition. And everyone seek it out. It's very unique and different, and you'll definitely it takes you on a ride, and you'll enjoy the ride. So thank you both so much, Ryan and Tony, for being on the show.
Thanks, Jan. We love what you do, so thanks for the support as well. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah.
You can listen to The Jan Price Show whenever, wherever, at thejanpriceshow.com. And you can listen to it on the iHeart Podcast Network, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and go to The Jan Price Show on Facebook and like it. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The Jan Price Show. Thank you all for listening.
On PowerTalk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeart Radio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.